After Tina Brown's unexpected resignation from The New Yorker in July, speculation ran high as to who would take her place. Within less than a week, it was announced that David Remnick, one of the magazine's most prolific and gifted writers, would succeed her as editor. Some have called him the Michael Jordan of journalism. He began his career as a staff writer at the Washington Post in 1982, where he later served as foreign correspondent covering 4 years of political change in Russia. His coverage there led to his Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Lenin's Tomb, in 1994. He joined The New Yorker shortly after, where he became known for his expansive profiles on subjects ranging from Mike Tyson to the Pope. He's also written 3 other books, including a forthcoming biography of Muhammad Ali. I am pleased to have him on this broadcast anytime, as well as this evening. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
This is embarrassing.
It's very embarrassing. But you never heard the names Mike Tyson and the Pope in the same sentence. Not very often. Not very often. As far as Michael Jordan is concerned, I can barely make a layup. So. But thanks
Who
anyway.
would be most flattered by that, the Pope or Michael? Or Mike
I
Tyson?
think Mike Tyson at this sorry point. In
Well,
his
we don't
career.
know. Maybe the Pope would admire his
Pope's
fighting style.
ambitions are purely spiritual.
Here is the question, basically, about you at The New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about the opportunity, because you had to consider this question, made you put aside writing, which is what you love so much?
Be very honest. If I thought that I had the talent of Philip Roth or something like that, I wouldn't give up writing for love or money, much less the editorship of The New Yorker. I don't. I think I'm a pretty good journalist. I think I'm a pretty good reporter. The New Yorker is unquestionably, to my mind, essential to this culture, to reading, to this country. And I thought that I shouldn't look this opportunity by. I love this magazine passionately. I've written some, and this was an enormous challenge, a scary one, but one I didn't want to just let go by. It doesn't happen very often. And it's a totally different experience, totally different. Writing, in some sense, is an utterly selfish, day-to-day experience, impossibly hard, but selfish. You get up in the morning and you work in your pajamas, unless you're out interviewing somebody, and you're obsessed with one thing, one singular, impossibly difficult mountain to get over. Editing is all about inspiring other people to do their absolute best work, bringing that work together, creating a magazine that is filled with interest, information, delight, hilarity, intellectual challenge, all the things that are The New Yorker. Maybe the parallel is playing and coaching, I don't know. But I couldn't let it go by.
But you're not a player-coach, are you?
I cannot say that I'll disappear for 3 weeks and go reporting in Israel or Russia or even, Southeast Washington and then come back and write. I can't. That would be cheating the magazine terribly. But I expect that I'll write. I've already, I have to admit, written twice, little small things, a piece on Russia and a talk of the town.
Right.
But there'll be other things.
You've been there, what, a couple months?
Yeah.
What surprises you about being an editor?
I guess any writer suspects, because of our innate, and I still count myself as among writers, a slight contempt for editors. Like,
Or if they were so good, they'd be writing?
Right, and people who can't teach, and people who can't teach gym. But it's not quite that simple, it turns out. It's just different. And I want to get up every morning and try to accomplish 40 different things as opposed to one singular thing. That's one thing. But the difference is enormous. I once read an interview with John Cheever in the Paris Review, and he was talking about the difference between writing a novel, Bullet Park or Wapshot Chronicles that he did, or Falconer, and what he really specialized in, which was short fiction. And the interviewer asked a very typical interview question, which was, what's the difference between writing a novel and short stories? Something I might ask him, you might ask him. And he said, the difference is the difference between swimming laps and shooting a gun. They're just utterly different.
Nothing.
Yes, they both use language.
Yeah.
They both have elements of character and rhythm, but the architecture is different. What you can accomplish and what you want to accomplish in short fiction as opposed to novel is different. It's just totally and utterly different. There is a piece of writing that is like editing. It's being confronted with a text and trying to figure out what in God's name is wrong with it. Why, for some reason, you don't want to go on. What structurally is off. What, the mechanics of it. And sometimes I'll be reading a piece as an editor now, and I'm reading it, not as mine, but I'll be saying, oh, don't do that. I'm almost talking to the writer. Don't make that move, or something like that. But then you have the extra dimension. You have to deal with that writer as a human being, with sympathy, with an understanding of how hard writing is, and how hard getting it right is. And The New Yorker is about the same thing writing is, about getting it right, as close to right as you can. And each person is different.
Tina Brown was on this program a number of times, as you know, and said that basically the best thing a writer can do is the best thing an editor can do is find the right writers. You know, that her job was the care and feeding of writers. That's what it was about.
She's absolutely right. She's right about that and a lot of other things. You know, I watched, Charlie, I basically worked for two editors.
Ben Bradley.
Ben Bradley and Tina Brown.
Not bad.
Not bad. Very different,
Yeah.
but similar in certain ways.
How different and how similar?
Well, first of all, Ben Bradley's a newspaper editor, and his rhythm, his attention span, the way he operated was geared toward a newspaper. Tina's much more of a magazine
but
person.
that's easy.
Well, but they had different tasks thrown at them. Where they're similar is the need they felt to inject themselves totally into that publication and bring out the best work of people. Ben Bradley is a big personality. Tina Brown is a big personality. God knows what the hell I am, and we'll find out.
Well, but does it mean that you... Go ahead, and then I'll
You know, Bradley called me to congratulate me, and I said, please give me one piece of advice. And I
Give
thought
me
it would
something
be,
I can use.
Something I can use, and I thought it would be something that would be familiar to me about integrity and whatever. And he said, you know, let the cult of personality develop slowly. Thanks a lot. I don't want any cults of personality. It's a
Very slowly.
It's a phrase from my Russian experience that rings very badly. Ben Bradley, by the time I got there, was not tough like he was in the 60s. He already, all he had to do was be himself and walk through the newsroom 3 times a day, and everybody was charged up.
Right.
I ain't at that stage by any means.
Tina Brown had what?
Tina Brown had guts. That's where they're similar. Ben Bradley had guts. They both still have it, by the way. Tina Brown, in many ways, went at that magazine and challenged its canons, its iconography. You can't have photographs. She said, why not? You can't do this. You can't do that. And my feeling about Tina is that, and those changes, is now those possibilities are open to us. Not just to me, but to us in this magazine. The question is what we do with them. What do we do with photographs? What do we do with color? What do we do with all the possibilities presented by this moment?
What do you have to do? Tina Brown had to walk this line. She had to keep the tradition and move it into a different place and make it more timely, make it more contemporary, a lot of other things that she wanted to do. She went from monthly to weekly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you have to do to make this magazine David Remnick's magazine, not Tina Brown's magazine?
Look, I don't edit with any one editor on my shoulder. I edit with the New Yorker
On your shoulder.
whole on my shoulder, in the best sense.
So Sean is there. And Brown is there.
Yeah, and
Gottlieb is
yeah,
there.
No, all of them. And there's things to learn from all of them, and not only from editors of The New Yorker. And I feel that The New Yorker, period, is a magazine about, first and foremost, a community of readers that no other magazine, as much as I respect lots of them, and I mean that, no other magazine, certainly no other weekly, is received in the same spirit as The New Yorker is by its audience. I have the letters to prove it, the passionate letters, the furious letters, the engagement that The New Yorker has. That's what we are. And it's brought about because we innately and will always respect the reader, not write down to the reader, not guess what the reader may want so that the reader will like us better.
All right. A magazine has to reflect, no matter what its tradition, no matter who the writers are, it has to have a vision, and it has to reflect its editor. Here's what they say about you. Clearly, this magazine will have more politics because of you. Clearly, and it won't all be about Russia.
No, it will not. Okay. No, it will not.
Clearly, this magazine will have more sports.
Yeah.
What is it about you and sports?
Well, I'm not an obsessive. I mean, Charlie, I'm not sort of scratching my belly all Sunday afternoon, but I'm interested.
No,
but
you like sports characters.
This is a great American obsession, sports. Yeah. And because it first of all, not only does it show us athletic greatness, but we learn from it. I just finished a book on Muhammad Ali. Not because he's a boxer. There's been lots of boxers, and you can argue who's the best. I couldn't care less. I probably think boxing as a sport should eventually just die off a natural death, like Christians and lions. But Ali is a magnetic, historical figure that coalesced in him by intuition and wit and character his times. That fascinated me, and that kept me going throughout the entire writing of that book. He's a character like Davy Crockett or Gorgeous George or Malcolm X. I mean, he's a great American character, and sports often produces that. I'm passionate about this city. I love this city, and I want to see the city more and more in the magazine. You bet. You bet.
You're going to see more politics in your magazine?
Of a kind.
What
of
kind?
A kind. In other words, Charlie, we're not Newsweek or Time or the Washington Post or the New York Times, where my wife works. I know about those publications. I've worked at one of them for a very long time. But timeliness, I think, is not unimportant. I mean, read the magazine on Monday. It will range between the timely and the timeless, which I think we should do all the time.
The timely and the timeless.
The timely, guess what, will have something to say about Monica Lewinsky. We even squeeze something in there, a kind of arch take on Monica and economics, the economics of scandal.
Did you, when Cy Newhouse calls you and said, can I talk to you, and I guess you came over and went to his office and you sat down, did he want a vision of the magazine? Did he want to talk about what would you do with this?
Well, remember, I guess if you're an editor at some other magazine, maybe when an editorship comes open, it's on your mind, quite naturally. I have to tell you, Charlie, my biggest concern the morning that I heard Tina was leaving, before I heard it, was, getting Richard Holbrooke to talk to me for a piece that I wanted to do. Writer business.
It's hard to get Richard Holbrooke to talk to you.
For me, it is. For me, it is. Well, he's in the middle of a confirmation process and all the rest. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a very good reporter.
I didn't know that was difficult.
Well, and then this thing came up, and it came up in incremental bits. And I went over to see Cy Newhouse, and we talked about the magazine. What should change? What should stay the same? What I'd do, what I wouldn't do. And we met on a Thursday and a Friday. I, over the weekend, wrote a long memo about what I would do. And on a Monday, I sent the memo very late Sunday night, and Monday, this all happened. July 13th, I think. And
you have enormous respect for the person who also was under deep consideration, Michael Kinsley.
I do. I do.
And it's a very different, interesting choice. Here's a guy who's a brilliant reputation as an editor.
And a writer.
And a writer, but more as an editor. And a columnist.
Michael Kinsley has edited 3 magazines beautifully.
Yeah.
Harper's, the New Republic, and he's invented Slate. For me to have anything but respect for Michael Kinsley would be foolish.
So do I. But can you make a case that if you've never edited a magazine that you got a long hill to climb? Or do you look at where you are now and say, look, if you come with a love of writing, with some skill at writing, if you come having inhabited a publication, you can do this?
Well, look, I've never edited a magazine. The only editing of a major publication I've done is the Pascack Valley Smoke Signal in my high school years.
It was a great,
fantastic newspaper.
Yeah.
But in the last 5 years, I was in on lots of editorial meetings. I did have some editing functions, and I edited pieces, or at least read them and said, this is fine, this is ridiculous, this is garbage, this is great. And went to lots of meetings and saw how the thing worked.
So you had no real trepidation about diving in? Because it was such an opportunity.
Only a fool would get in, either on television or in private, say there's no trepidation.
But only a fool
Fear is very helpful.
Fear is good.
Oh, yeah.
But only a fool would turn it down if you felt like you could do it.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Look, I can't lie to you and say that that I don't miss writing, will not miss writing. I mean, it's part of me the way my family is part of me, the way my body is part of me. And I'll have to find a way to indulge that and to exercise that muscle. But this magazine needs my full attention, and the writers and artists who create it need my full attention, and for me to sort of dive away from that instantly and go off somewhere would be foolish and ridiculous and indulgent.
So far you love it?
I do. I really do.
It's great power to be able to say, I want to see a great story about this idea, this person. I want to know more about this issue.
Well, on any level.
And order it up by some of the best writers.
It's thrilling. It's thrilling. It shapes what you...
Conduct your own orchestra. Let's hear more of the violins.
It shapes what, not only what your readers will read, but what one reads.
Yeah.
And the very first week, the shape that took was I read the short story, and it was okay. And yet I was 3/4 of the way through the new Philip Roth, I Married a Communist, finding it absolutely, bottomlessly fascinating. And he's a hero. And I did a kind of Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland, let's put on a show sort of thing, and said, well, why don't we run a piece of this? I like this a lot better. And Bill Buford, the fiction editor, made a brilliant cut from this novel and made it work as a shorter piece appropriate for the New Yorker. And that was thrilling. That was week one. And to know that you, down the line, as you develop pieces and get writers to come in with their ideas. At the New Yorker, unlike, I think, other places, we don't order up stories like an egg cream. Writers come in, they say, I'm interested in this and this and this, and maybe you talk it over and you develop these things, these ideas, and then they go out and do them. It's a process. It's not...
What was at the core? The core of your memo?
Well, a number of things. I really want to strengthen the presence of critics. I want to make the magazine funnier, have a lot more reported humor in it, the likes of Mark Singer, or David Owen, or Susan Orlean. There should be delight, as well as the kind of gruesome stuff that I'm specialized in, some murder somewhere, Russian politics. I mean, there should be that, and you should get the New Yorker every week and laugh a lot. You should. I feel, Charlie, that you read the New Yorker 3 times if you're like so many of our readers. You get it the first time and you flip through and you read cartoons, and maybe some short talk of the town pieces, maybe a short humor piece or one of the columns in the front. The second time through some of the shorter pieces, and then on that plane ride, the long commute, whatever it is, you finally make that investment in what makes us different, and that's that long piece that you saved up maybe for 2 weeks to read about a John Lahr profile, a Hilton Knowles profile, a Daphne Merkin critical piece that's been an obsession of hers. This is, you know, this is special about the New Yorker, this sort of dimension of reading, and it creates this community of readers that I was talking about before.
I hope it will not keep you away from this program. It's always a great pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It really is. Good luck to you,
Thank
my
you.
friend. I was thrilled when I heard that you were going to do this. Before you go, there's on the back of this book, because he's on this program, David Remnick on this book, Roger Cohen's Hearts Grown Brutal. You say, a book of a lifetime.
Roger Cohen poured his guts into the coverage of Bosnia, and I read him in the paper daily and was astonished by not only his courage, because there were many reporters, and God knows Bosnians, who endured that, but he just had courage of judgment and integrity. His prose was wonderful, and then he did something that's very unusual. He didn't assemble a book of kind of clips. He brought it to the next level. He wrote this book that is just an astonishing piece of work.
Four families.
Oh, it's great. It really is a great book.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
We'll be back. Stay with us.